Hi everybody, Dan Illman along with Mike Beer. Welcome to Breeders' Cup Focus. Each week leading up to the Breeders' Cup, we'll take a look at a couple of divisional leaders. And in this edition of Breeders' Cup Focus, we'll take a peek at the top contenders for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Let's throw up the list compiled by our colleague David Grenning. Odds in order, very preliminary morning line odds. They were compiled by DRF's Southern California analyst Brad Free, and he's got Bob Baffert's very impressive undefeated game winner as your 3-1 morning line favorite. It's a classic East versus West matchup because Chad Brown's got an undefeated 2-year-old as the second choice from New York. Complexity at 4-1. Gunmetal Gray, second to game winner in the American Pharaoh, is the third choice, along with Code of Honor, who was second to Complexity in the Champagne Stakes. Then you've got Mind Control, Standard Deviation, well-defined, the shocking winner of the Breeders' Futurity, Knicks Go, Tight 10, and King for a Day. Let's begin with Baffert's game winner, a perfect 3 for 3, and handled the 2-turn test. I guess that's an edge he has over Complexity, whose route win came in the 1-turn mile of the Champagne. Let's go back to the American Pharaoh Stakes for game winner. It was a short field. He was supposed to win as a relatively heavy favorite at 3-10, and it's kind of a workmanlike effort. First time 2 turns, but this horse is professional, and he earned a fig, 97.
Yeah, second consecutive Grade 1 win for this horse. You're right. It's not the most visually impressive win in the world, but he got it done, and he got it done with a solid figure at 97. You could see him. He had to really fight for it there through the upper stretch, but fight for it he did. He got clear at the end. You saw Gunmetal Gray, the West Point horse, come along for second, and there he sort of looked like he got outpaced a little bit in upper stretch while game winner was fighting that thing out. He stayed on pretty well at the end. He's got one of those pedigrees where you feel like the distance is okay for him.
What does Gunmetal Gray have to do next time out other than run faster to upend game winner? A game winner might have a little bit more tactical speed at this point. I wonder if that margin of victory was a little exaggerated because Rowayton, the horse that he passed, he seemed distance challenged.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rowayton might be a pretty nice horse, but I'm not sure how far he wants to go. Gunmetal Gray, I guess he just has to take another step forward, and you know what? Maybe the race will play out a little bit differently, obviously, in the Breeders' Cup, where if game winner wants to be forward and he winds up getting hooked up there, obviously that changes the entire race. I feel like Gunmetal Gray was in a position there where he had to stay close to that pace. It wasn't a big field, and you could see the other 2 horses were just straggled way behind him, so he had to stay close, and you saw him get outpaced a little bit there in the upper stretch, but he was staying on at the end.
But he has the experience advantage over Complexity, 3 starts to Complexity's 2, and as I stated earlier, the 2-turn advantage, the win in the American Pharaoh around 2 turns. Complexity won the 1-turn Champagne in only his second lifetime start. Arguably the most impressive maiden winner at Saratoga as a 2-year-old this year for Chad Brown, going 6 furlongs in gate-to-wire fashion, and his speed was so strong in the Champagne. We take things over turning into the turn, and Complexity is just right there on the lead, and he's just put his chasers away. We're going to see Shug McGaughey's Code of Honor in the green silks. He was saving ground early, forced to go wide on the turn, long wide bid through the turn, but no catching Complexity, who popped a 94 Beyer speed figure. Do you have any distance concerns with this horse stretching out another 16th in the BC?
I mean, I would be a little concerned about it. We'll see what happens. I don't know ultimately how far he went. The thing with this race was he was so fast early. He was loose on the lead basically right from the start, and they just never got anywhere near him to challenge him all the way around the turn. By the time they turned to the top of the stretch when we picked it up, I mean, he was sort of isolated up there. He was set down by Jose Ortiz. They were never catching him in the stretch, but it's not like he buried that field at the end of the race. I still think he ran well. I think he's a really talented colt. I would worry at least a little bit about how far he wants to go. I thought Code of Honor ran an excellent race.
Let's talk a little bit about Code of Honor, because Shug usually doesn't have him cranked up to win first time out, and this horse did win first time out. A very good performance in the Champagne. Not exactly the kind of pedigree, though, that you think, wow, it's the typical Shug. They want to go 3 miles and they'll improve with distance. This horse has got a little bit of precocity and early ability in this pedigree. I wonder if you give Code of Honor a little bit of pace in the Breeders' Cup, that Shug will have him ready at a price.
It'll be interesting to see what he does. The thing about him is, you're right, Shug, when he wins with a first-time starter, 2-year-old first-time starter, sprinting on the dirt, you want to pay attention to that, especially when they win like Code of Honor did, right on the front end in that race. Not like he, caught some pace that fell apart. Like Honor Code. I mean, he actually wired that field. We didn't show the beginning of the Champagne, but he stumbled very badly at the start of that race. He was badly compromised in there. I thought he ran really well to be second.
Mind Control is listed at 8-1 on Brad Free's preliminary early line. This is going to be Plan B. Plan A was to
Right.
run in the Breeders' Futurity last Saturday. He came down with the temperature. He was forced to miss the race. And I'm sure the connections were sick when the 70-1 shot went to the lead and wired that field,
Yeah.
because you know Mind Control would have been close. So now Mind Control will go into the Breeders' Cup off a little bit of an illness, off a 2-month layoff, stretching out for the first time, and a lot of question marks about his win in the Grade 1 hopeful. Let's turn into the stretch of the hopeful. The speed just didn't break in this race, and Mind Control was able to control a mild pace up front. He's turning for home down towards the inside. He's going to put away Mucho, who's out for the year, Nitrous, who just didn't really fire, and Sombaye, the horse that finished fourth. The fact that he finished close, I'm not sure flatters the hopeful, because he bombed in the Breeders' Futurity with a good trip.
Yeah, I mean, all those things are true, and it doesn't, you don't want to be too hard on Mind Control, because he just
ran
did
great.
in this race what he had to do in here. He had his speed, he contested it, he prevailed at the end. It's just really unfortunate that he had to miss his major prep for the Breeders' Cup, because now he's going to go in there off of a layoff, having missed his major prep and stretching out for the first time in a race where there's plenty of other speed for him to contend with too. There's just a lot working against him now, but he's a nice colt.
And it's not like he's going to catch a Juvenile devoid of speed.
Yeah.
Complexity shows up. He's probably faster than Mind Control coming out of the gate, and now he's going to have to do things differently going 2 turns again after missing an important prep. A talented runner is Mind Control, but there's a lot going against him. Let's talk about Standard Deviation, also trained by Chad Brown. This horse ran in the Breeders' Futurity. Was his race lost at the post position draw?
I mean, it certainly didn't help drawing post 13 in a field of 13. I would argue that, listen, Nick's Go, who knows what he does out of that race, where he just got right to the end, easily the best speed in there. He just never stopped. I think in a lot of ways, this is the horse you probably want out of that race. To wind up so far back, we're not going to show the replay of it, but he tried to make a middle move into that race. First of all, it was not the kind of race that lent itself to that, and he kept coming through the stretch. He actually ran a very underrated race. Now, he's got a 73 and a 70 as far as buyers go for his first 2 starts. He's very slow on the way in, but that's an underrated performance last time, I thought.
Conversely, well defined, has a fast number coming out of a race in South Florida. It was a big fig for a good trainer in Catherine O'Connell, but talk about a hike in class to the Breeders' Cup.
Yeah, it's a huge step up. He fits as far as figures go, though. He's run well in all 4 of his career starts. I feel like we get one of these horses from South Florida every year in the Breeders' Cup, like 2-year-old.
Okay.
Yeah, the colts tend not to do that well, but there's always one that looks really good on paper with a big fig, and they show up, and they tend not to really class up when it's crunch time, but there's nothing to knock about what this horse has done so far.
Well, we have a nice East versus West matchup, not only with the winners of the major preps out there, Game winner, the winner of the American Pharaoh, Complexity, the winner of the Champagne, but the runner-ups from those races. I think Gunmetal Gray has a lot of potential at this distance. I think Code of Honor has a lot of potential at this distance. It makes for a really intriguing Breeders' Cup Juvenile, but as for right now, it's Baffert and Brown with the 2 morning line favorites.